I'm Jackie Schneider. I'm a primary school teacher and I've taught in Merton for the last 30 years. My introduction to trade unions was when I worked in the print before Rupert Murdoch, and it was a closed shop. You had to be a member of the union to get the job, and we worked side by side with management, and I think my first strike was for 1 hour and we won. And so I saw really up close and personal how powerful trade unions can be. Fast forward to today, and actually it's a very different picture, but it doesn't have to be. And I think it's very exciting when we can actually build on successes. Now, I want to talk about some of the wins that we've had at my school. And I have to say, because I've only got 5 minutes, I'm going to telescope it together. And it's not because I'm a super rep, it's literally because of the conditions in my school. So just to give you a tiny bit of context, I don't work for like an evil chain or a particularly difficult group of schools or a MAT. I'm in a 2-form primary, a local authority controlled school with a perfectly reasonable head teacher. But like everybody, my school operates in this awful national model of education we've got, where it's a bit like the Hunger Games. You get a group at the top dictating only the worthy will be, have a decent standard of living if they jump through all these hoops. And the way that the government just brings down from on high, diktat after diktat, backed up by their bully boys of Ofsted and inspection systems, they put that on the heads, who then very often put that back onto their schools. And if we're not careful, sometimes we can then push that pressure back down to our kids. So that's the kind of just the context. And I'm guessing that most people have that feeling and experience at school. And in the olden days, when I started teaching, professional judgment meant as teachers we had more voice, more space. And I'm just going to say the biggest win we had over COVID was a proper place at the table when we were looking at safety. Now, and it didn't happen straight away. What actually happened was we got given a load of badly written through diktats about how our school was going to be open, and now this is what the government want. And we actually had to really push back hard, and we were helped by the position the NEU took nationally. But getting a place at the table meant that it was genuine, so what that looks like is once a week, the head, the chair of governors and the union rep sits down and evaluates the situation against health and safety. And that means even if there are other senior managements who want to push different agendas, it has to fit within that. And if it doesn't, then they've kind of broken it. And that's a genuine, because what they wanted to do was just to say, this is what we want to do. Is it okay? Just say yes. And the reason we were able to get a place at the table was twofold. Firstly, you need members who are prepared to act up, who are prepared to say, I'm going to read the guidance, and actually I'm going to tell you, in my nursery, I know the windows aren't open, I need this, this and this. And in my year 6 classroom, actually we have this problem. So you need members willing to kind of come at it with engagement. But the other thing you need is a bit of a threat. So the threat that we would not open schools in June, way back in June, unless we had a place at the table, and then we could help the school. We could help the school open safely. And we made no apologies, because we said nobody should go to an unworked workplace, and nobody should put non-unionised members in unsafe workplaces. So we're speaking for them whether or not they're our members, and no kid should be put in that position. So having those two things meant that we were then taken seriously. But if your members aren't willing to get involved and tell you where the problems are, we wouldn't have been able to do it. But equally, we also needed the threat. So my top tips: take the minutes. The person who controls the minutes controls the agenda. So I would go to a meeting and the head would sort of do a few airy-fairy things, and I would write down, and every time we disagreed, I would say that again so I can minute it for my members. And I will share my meeting straight after this. I will type it up and I share it with my members, and I'll send a copy to the governors, because the governors are here, and I'll send you it as well. So doing that transformed our meetings, because we would have lots of airy-fairy agreements and then nothing would happen. And then when we got to the next week's meeting, I'd say, right, we said this, did you do it? Because often they would want to start with a different point. Oh, the government just brought this out. Can we talk about this? Yeah, we can, but let's start with the minutes. So I'm apologies if this is like really, really basic stuff, but it was a revelation to me, and because I hate taking minutes, but just really short, pithy minutes. And also it stops you getting sucked in. I never get pulled out of class, you know, to be given a cup of tea with a biscuit and the governors and what have you. And so the minutes, showing it to your members, keeps you accountable and stops you kind of getting, you know, too kind of cozy. So minutes were big. Oh, use your school values. So, you know, those kind of cheesy things that are all over the sweatshirts and the website, and this is a school that puts children first, blah, blah, blah. Every request we made, I framed within the language of the school. So we have, you know, a school that puts children at the heart of blah, 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 you know, will not want children, you know. So that's really important. And it made it much easier for the governors when they were feeling a bit wobbly about backing us because we were going so much further than what the government wanted. So use the school values. And, you know, there is a school that actually has whatever it takes. What they meant by that was teachers work through their lunch, teachers pay for whatever, teachers do whatever. But it was an absolute joy because I took whatever it takes, it wasn't my school, and said, okay, this takes one-to-one teaching, this takes smaller class sizes, this takes, you know, if it's whatever it takes, I can't wait to see the plan. And that was actually dropped. So use that. So, and I'm going to finish by saying, I mean, I can talk for England on the chapter and verse on ventilation and all the stuff that we won, but actually we had to go further than that and take control of the curriculum. So we had arguments and discussions over remote learning, but we made it work by refusing to do it until the infrastructure was in place. And we used the NEU, even though I love all things digital, we used the NEU. We were not going to do live teaching until the infrastructure was in place. And finally, we helped our school, our head, our governors were grateful. And, you know, you can be made to feel that it's a, you know, narrow self-interest thing, but actually having an active group is a way to keep your school safe as possible. And it's not rocket science, but breaking it down into small steps and achievable goals. And when you get a win, it is so much easier. So now we are already, before Christmas, we started looking at the, you know, when we go back, what do we want for the curriculum? So the more prepared we are, the easier it's been to go to management to say, this is our recovery curriculum. I don't care what overpriced scheme you've brought in. The professionals in year one are telling you this. The professionals in year two are telling you that. So, but be proactive, and it is possible.